Okay, construction cost, sale price, and revenue. So what we have here is this sheet does three things for us. One, it calculates the development revenue for us. It calculates the construction cost for us, and it also calculates the end value for those products. So let's say so we can calculate construction costs, market value, and we also calculate agents commission on this. So there are three things. So development revenue is just a cost head that we use to get a total for. However, what it is doing is that we've got all these residential unit sales underneath it that we are trying to calculate. Now, before you get overwhelmed, I want you to tell yourself that this is super easy, because it is super easy. There is no rocket science behind this. All you need to do is first look at this in bite size. So if I collapse everything, you'll see that there are just four sections. We are calculating residential construction cost and the market value for what we are going to build. If there is a commercial component to our development, we are going to calculate the construction cost for the commercial area and what we can sell that commercial area for in that. And then if there is an agent commission applicable on residential, and if there is an agent commission applicable for commercial. That is all there is happening. In fact, the last two sections, you don't really need to do anything because we do everything up top in here if it's applicable. For most people, when you're there doing a residential development, they are just doing a residential development. For some of the other people, if you're doing a mixed-use development, you might have retail at the bottom, and then an office space on level 1, and then residential on top. So you can do all these things with this feasibility. So on the side here as well, there are sections here which I can expand to calculate the construction cost component. And then we have all the cash flow sections over here as well. So don't worry about any of this, because all you have to worry about is, what am I building? What is the size of that thing? And if I'm building that, what am I going to sell it for? So those are the only things that you have to take into account. So I'll just expand that so that I can show you what's what, and you don't get overwhelmed with it. So let's look at this first section here. This first section here is about our residential construction cost and revenue. So that's what we are trying to do here, and all those construction costs and revenue that's going to come in, we are also going to map them out as per the cash flow. Okay, so here we have, on this column, we've got development revenue. Now, if you remember, and you go into your lead developer master data and you go into your cost codes over here, you will see that we have this section in our in our master data, in our cost code. So what we are doing is, we've got our development revenue. So if you were to change the name here, which is what you can do over here, if you wanted to go and change this name from development revenue to something else, you would change that, come here and change the drop down over here, and then whatever falls under the development revenue, what would you call that? So for example, residential unit sales, commercial unit sales, retail unit sales, or if you want to simplify it, you can call them sale of units. If you're doing a subdivision, you can call it sale of lots. If you've got parking lots that you are selling, you can call it parking lots. And a miscellaneous one, you can call it sale other, for example. But you have the ability to go and change all of these. Again, over here under our account heads, we allocated these cost codes into a sheet. And we have whether or not these include GST, because now we're doing a feasibility that's applicable in Australia. So we have GST as yes at the moment. And I'll just quickly turn off things and show you how same things would happen in there. So it is only just one little component. Everything else happens exactly the same. So let's go back here. So we've got residential unit sales. So if you were to go and add new cost codes over here, you can. And then in your template that you are setting up, you would come in and change them and save that as a template. And then next time you're creating a new one, you'll just pick that template. But to keep things simple, I've just got them as residential unit sales. So if I was to click on this, you'll see my entire cost code section will show up here as a drop down. This bottom here is your GST payment liability. Now, if you are from US and Canada, don't worry about it. Leave it as it is. It doesn't really do anything to you, or does not do any calculations for you, or have an impact on your main summary sheet that shows you the full performance of the development. But you can, but for people who who are from Australia, from New Zealand, or from UK, because they would have VAT, and then they would go and change this thing over here. So if you look at our 6, so we have this section where we have our GST liability payment and GST input credits or refund, which is the money that we can claim back on the expenses, and because it's the difference that we have to report on. They all fall under the GST section. So if you're from UK, you would change the name to VAT in your account heads and cost heads and change them accordingly. But you will, this calculation section over here, you will still need to have a meaningful name that does exactly the same thing or mean exactly the same thing. So that is the important bit. These units here, these are just for your own reference. You might call this unit, you might call this unit 5 and put a dash over there, and this is a 2-bedder and 1 bath, for example. This is for you to keep that in account. So this is there's nothing, it has no impact on anything. It's not being populated from a drop down. This is only for this particular development and for this particular feasibility. Now, to calculate the first thing that we are doing here is calculating construction costs. So let me zoom out a little bit so I can show you what this whole thing looks like. So this is your construction cost section. So all this blue area over here is your construction cost. So what we are trying to do here, we're trying to identify the areas that we're going to build, and what the size of these areas are going to be, and what we are going to allow as a dollar per unit of measurement construction cost. This section here, everything that is green, is all related to figuring out a market value for what we are building. And over here we have our construction section, and then we will plot them onto our cash flow section. And I'll show you how each one of them works. When it comes to, so let's zoom into the construction section. So let's just zoom in here so that we are only focusing on this. Now, remember the template has these breaks, these little stop things, whatever that is called, set up, and you can move them around. But I've actually found them to be the most useful of where they are at the moment. So, but you do have the ability to actually move them around. And once you've done your construction calculation, click this button thing so that you can just minimize it and not worry about it. So let's go here. When it comes to the calculating the construction costs, there are 3 different methods that you can use. One is your average cost per unit of measurement. So this is an average cost per meter square or per square feet. So that's this option. The other one is average cost per unit. So if you already know what you are doing and you've done this many times before, and you know that I build townhouses at $350,000 a pop, and you know that I'll just go with 350 because I'm just trying to get some numbers in, and I'm going to use this option. So in that scenario, you select that, and then you have an individual area cost per unit of measurement. That means that you are a smart cookie, or you are already have done many developments before. or you've done, or you work with a builder who can break down these areas into a dollar per square meter or dollar per square feet. So because I've been running my own construction company for a while, I prefer this individual area cost per unit of measurement. And what this does is, you'll see that I have some formatting set up here. So if I select that, I can only put in number of units that I'm going to build. Now this could be 2-bed 2-bath, and this could be 3-bed 2-bath, or this could be 4-bed apartment or whatever, and the number of units of that size could be 4, 5, 6, so you could put that in, and then we'll put all these details in, but I'll show you in a second. But if I'm selecting average cost per unit, that means I'm going with the ballpark figure. So I know that I'm building these residential units, and I'm going to be building 4 of them. And I know that, you know, these are all 3-bedders. I've done it many times before. They will cost me $350,000 each. That's when I put in this value. If I am not using that and I'm using something else, you'll see everything else will get grayed out. That means, you know, that means the calculations will happen based on these values. So if you select, this was per unit, so if you select cost per unit of measurement, that means, all this means is that you're just going by a square meter rate for the total build area. So what you're doing is, you're saying, for me to build a townhouse, it cost me $1,650 a square meter. And it could be square feet or whatever dollar per square feet rate that you got. You select that in here, and you put in the number of units that you're going to use, 5, 6, 7, doesn't matter. And don't worry about these are just templates. These were there to show you as a guideline. These can be deleted. You can delete them, especially if you're using this option over here, because it is only going to use these 2 cells for the calculation. But if you are using individual area cost per unit of measurement, which is my recommended way of doing it, is to, but it also requires a fair bit of experience from a builder, or if you are working closely with a builder and who can give you these rates, you can put those things in here. So let's say we have residential construction cost and number of units you're going to build. I'm going to build 4 units, but I'm going to have a net saleable area. Now everything that falls under NSA 1234 are the areas that you can sell, and we will dive deep into this into the next video.